Hello, I'm Jorge Gestoso. Welcome to a new program. On today's show, are the abortion rights in danger in the U.S.? Our guest, Bridgette Gomez, Director of Latino Engagement at Planned Parenthood, the largest nonprofit organization that provides reproductive health care to women in the United States and the world. Bridgette Gomez, a warm welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Bridgette, what's going on? Why this wave of states that are trying to restrict the rights of the abortion? Why now and why?
So you're right, we have seen a huge wave of attacks on reproductive health care. We've seen these attacks happen since day one this administration came into the office. These attacks have been attacks now happening locally. But we know where this came from. This originated from the remarks by this President Trump on the attacks on reproductive health care, by the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh into the Supreme Court. We have seen that local politicians have been emboldened to enact and pass these horrible abortion bans happening across the country. And this isn't something new. We've known that there's a group of extremists who've been working hard to ensure that they can do all they can to ensure that access to safe and legal abortion in this country goes away.
So we're talking about 9 states so far that are really restricting the abortion rights. Most of them only during the first 6 weeks, some of them even 8. But the idea is to push the envelope, as we say in English, to push the envelope so that the issue could reach the Supreme Court. And why they're pushing to reach that point?
That's right. What we're seeing is these people, these extreme politicians moving this agenda to ensure that at the end of the day there's one objective in mind, that it comes to the Supreme Court and that can overturn Roe v. Wade, something that was won over 40 years ago to ensure that women across this country have access to safe and legal abortion. We know from day one this president has done all he can to attack our reproductive health and rights, and he ensured that he nominated people, justices, into the Supreme Court that would rule in his favor. And so this isn't something new. We know where this is going. We know the attacks are coming at one goal: to take away our access to safe and legal abortion and our access to control our bodies.
There are also different, if you want, levels of the restrictions. For example, Alabama is the worst case, the most extreme case. They are saying that there is no exceptions. No there incest, no rape, no the life of the woman at risk, and even the doctors could be sentenced to life in prison. And there are some of them that they say that, for example, at the moment that the heart starts to beat, at that moment the abortion cannot be taking place. In the case of Alabama, even the President Trump is against that because he says that with some exceptions, abortion could be performed. So what is going on in terms of why so extreme position regarding abortion?
We know that there is a group of extremists that are doing all they can in this moment, and they are empowered because they know that the president in the White House, Trump, and his administration and the Supreme Court will have their back. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pass the most extreme bans. We know that in this year alone, in 2019, over 300 bills have been introduced to attack our abortion, to put abortion restrictions. In fact, 19 abortion bans have passed. And amongst those, yes, we've seen in Missouri, in Georgia, and in Kentucky, in Louisiana last night, 6-week abortion ban happening. Last night, the governor signed into law a 6-week abortion ban that is very extreme in cases, too, of incest and race. The most extreme things of their kind is what we're seeing, and you're right, in Alabama. These things are not a coincidence. These things have an objective in mind, to ensure that they can get Roe versus Wade overturned. That's the ultimate goal.
And in the case of Missouri,
It's very important to know that this governor, days before this situation, passed one of the most extreme abortion bans. And then days later, he's doing all he can to ensure that the access to safe and legal abortion is gone in the state. Now, what that really means is that women's lives are at risk. It's not about the health care of their community. It's not about health care. It's not about medicine. It's not about science. It's strictly about taking away a woman's right to control her body, and it's simply about taking away our access to safe and legal abortion. Now, in Missouri, what that means for Planned Parenthood, we are the only provider that can have services of safe and legal abortion. Now, why is that? We have to look at history. Let's be clear. The governor of Missouri, and years past, They have continued to attack access to reproductive health and rights and continue to attack specifically abortion access. So what we're seeing now is just one provider left. Now, if they take away the licenses of doctors to provide services of abortion, there will be no place to go to in Missouri to access a safe and legal abortion.
In many cases, if we are looking geographically, out of the 9 states that have already passed laws restricting the abortion, most of them are in the South. Does that have something to do?
I think right now what we see is that there are extreme politicians in the South that are doing all they can to attack. Now, these have been attacks that are not new. We've seen many of these attacks. They come from a time where we see a new wave of people taking in new positions, taking new power in local states. But those in the South, some of these people have been in office for a very long time, and when they have one objective in mind, to take control and to continue to hold power, and to hold that power, they want to ensure that access to safe and legal abortion, which has allowed women across the nation to have control over their reproductive health and rights, that our bodies and are taken away, and that they can continue to control women. And this is something that we have seen. This is something that we know that here in the United States, the majority of Americans are against these attacks. I mean, we've seen over 500 events happen across the country to protest and to oppose what is happening. And we're going to continue to see them this weekend. In fact, one thing to note too is that 73% of all Americans want to ensure that we protect safe and legal abortion in this country. At Planned Parenthood, we're going to do all we can to protect, whether it's in the courts, in the streets, locally in states, and federally. We're going to fight hard and fight like hell to ensure that we continue to protect our right to safe and legal abortion.
Vice President Mike Pence against abortion.
That's right. President Mike Pence, before becoming vice president, has shown attacks on our reproductive health and rights for a very long time. So it is no surprise that this administration is doing all they can to continue to attack our access to safe and legal abortion, and are ultimately putting the lives of women at risk in this country, putting the lives ultimately of our communities at risk. Because instead of focusing on our health care, instead of focusing on the real issues, they're focusing on just taking away our rights. Let me be clear. In the state of Alabama, one of the most extreme abortion bans that passed, that completely takes away access to abortion, including in cases of rape or incest, and criminalizing doctors for just doing their jobs, they have the highest rate of cervical cancer. Why are they not focusing on ensuring that we can take away and remove barriers to care to ensure that people do not have cervical cancer? Why? That should be their focus. But instead, they're focusing on taking away our rights to access safe and legal abortion.
The other side of the coin, they're saying, this is not political. We are here defending life. At the moment that our hearts start to beat, there's a life. And to remove life through an abortion is to provoke the killing of someone. So basically, the abortion is promoting death, and we are promoting life. Your reaction?
I mean, that isn't true. If they're really promoting life, they're going to protect access to health care for all. This administration has done nothing but day one to try to attack our access to health care. I mean, we've seen attacks on ACA, we've seen attacks on teen pregnancy prevention programs, we've seen attacks on birth control. So ultimately, if you really want to help ensure that people are actually, that we're actually protecting the lives, if we're really going to ensure that people's health is first and foremost, you would not be attacking our access to health care. Before this administration, Obama ensured that access to birth control was something that people could have that was free. Instead, this president ensured that employers can choose whether or not to cover access to birth control. So let's understand where these attacks are coming from. Ultimately, if you really care about the health care of millions of people in this country, you would ensure that there is less barriers to accessing health care, and you would ensure that people can get the health care to prevent unwanted diseases, unwanted STIs, STDs, HIV, you name it. You would ensure that people have access to get their annual checkups. But that's not what this administration is doing. This administration is just focusing on ensuring that access to safe and legal abortion is gone away in this country.
The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, questions the legality of these laws. They say that maybe they are anti-constitutional and they are challenging them in court.
That's right, and we're going to continue to see folks challenging. Planned Parenthood is challenging what we are seeing in Missouri in court. We are going to continue to see challenges happen because what is happening is not right. We know where these attacks are coming from. A small group of very conservative, extreme politicians that are doing all they can to control women's lives. And so that is why you're going to see people marching on the streets. You're going to see battles in court. You're going to see laws fighting from local, state, politicians pushing all they can to protect safe and legal abortion, and things happening at the federal level. In fact, one thing to note is that our movement continues to grow. People are outraged about these horrible attacks happening. And what we're seeing, just like we saw earlier this year in the state of New York, for the first time, expanding access to safe and legal abortion, we've seen over 25 states, our champions in Congress, pushing to protect safe and legal abortion and expanding safe and legal abortion in this country. So yes, these attacks will continue to happen, but this movement of our community to fight against this continues to.
The people who are defending the right of the abortion say that if they remove the right, abortions are going to continue to take place, but it's going to be dangerous and they're going to put the life of the woman at risk.
Look, let's be real. Abortions, removing or banning abortions is not going to end abortions. What it will end is access to safe and legal abortion. What it's really doing is putting the lives of women at risk in this country for simply just ensuring that they can take away our rights. So taking away abortions doesn't remove them. It just removes safe and legal abortions, and it makes it harder for people to access the health care they need and they deserve in this country.
You're mentioning polls, and most, as you said, most of the polls says that the majority of the U.S. citizens are in favor of keeping the abortion rights.
That's right. 73% of all Americans support safe and legal abortion in this country. And something that we should note is, look at the actions that we're seeing. All of these, protests are happening. Communities are reacting. What we just saw happen in Missouri last night was a large protest against what was happening in the state of Missouri. And what we saw in Georgia, what you just mentioned earlier, we see people, companies, businesses understanding what's at risk in this country. And we won't go back to times where they just take away our rights. We're going to fight hard to protect the wins that we have made. We're going to fight hard everywhere to ensure that our supporters continue to have access to the health care they deserve.
Who is financing your organization, Planned Parenthood?
Look, we are just like any other provider. You go into a provider to get your access to care. You get services, whether it's your birth control, whether it's your annual exams, whether it's detecting cancer, cervical cancer, whether these annual exams to detect HIV, STDs, testing and treatment. When people come into our health centers, just like any other provider, your insurance will reimburse the provider for the services that it gave. We get our funding just like any other hospital, any other provider, as well as donations. We have many supporters who understand the importance of ensuring that our communities have access to health care they need and deserve in this country, and making sure that all people, especially those who have the most barriers to care, have those same rights and access. And that is why we have many people who donate money to Planned Parenthood.
Are you perceived as an enemy for the peoples that are fighting against the rights of abortion?
I mean, most certainly we've seen these extreme groups attack us. What we're seeing right now is not necessarily a surprise. We knew that this president, the way that he spoke about reproductive rights, would continue to embolden people to attack us, people to speak negatively about what an abortion is, to speak negatively about access to reproductive health care, and really ultimately try to take away our rights. And so this isn't a surprise, but we know that this administration will do all they can, and by nominating Justice Kavanaugh into this position, it really has emboldened politicians to become very extreme and to try with the goal to overturn Roe v. Wade. And we will not allow that to happen. We will fight like hell to ensure
So
that
we have
doesn't.
9 members of the Supreme Court, and now with Kavanaugh and with Gorsuch, President Trump believes that it has turned to the right, to the conservative side, the balance of power in the court. What do you think, or what your organization think or guess that could happen if the people who are trying to push the envelope to bring this issue to the Supreme Court will be the decision of these magistrates?
I mean, I think we've known from day one that the objective of these attacks, they are to overturn Roe v. Wade. And we will fight to ensure that our patients continue to have access to safe and legal abortion, something we won over 40 years ago, and something the American people continue to support. And so we will do all we can to continue to fight, but it is important to know, we know that that is the objective of this administration, and it's been the objective since day one. And that is why we're seeing all these abortion bans happen across the country right now.
So you think that eventually, if it reached the court, could basically overturn the right of abortion?
That is what they're attempting to do. But we at Planned Parenthood, and as you see across the country, we're going to fight back and say, no, don't take us back. This is wrong. The community does not, we're in opposition to this. The majority of Americans are opposing this, and we will fight like hell to ensure that does not happen. But we know these attacks won't go away, but we know how critically important it is that we speak out, that we join marches, that we fight in the courts, we fight locally, which is why we're asking people in this moment to take action, to tell your stories, to speak out against this. And we ask folks to continue to join us this weekend. You're going to see massive amounts of protests happening across the country again, just as we saw last week when over 500 events happened. We encourage people to join the movement. Join us, to fight for reproductive health and rights. We are at a crisis, a healthcare crisis in this country, in this moment, and we're asking our community to fight back. We need you. We need you. If you need, where you can join, how you can plug in, is that folks can always text "no bans" to 22422 and join the movement with us.
So far, 9 states have decided to pass laws restricting abortion. Do you think that that number is going to continue to grow?
We do believe the number is going to continue to grow. Just last night when Louisiana passed their 6-week abortion ban, we're continuing to see these attacks. We're continuing to see these extremists feel emboldened to take this and go ahead and put the most extreme abortion bans of its kind. Again, with the ultimate goal to get to the Supreme Court. So we're not going to be surprised if we see more, but you will know that the community will fight back. What we saw last week with those actions and those protests and what we saw last night, those aren't going to stop. As much as the extremists are going to continue to put all these abortion restrictions, we're going to see many people coming out and fighting back. And we're going to be ready to do so, and we're going to make sure, because the majority in this country know that the right thing to do is to continue to protect safe and legal abortion and ensure that women's lives are not at risk in this country.
In the case of Georgia, it has become sort of a center of production for films and also for television programs. For example, Disney, Netflix, NBC, CBS, works there, and they employ about 100,000 people. And now they are really considering if they are going to withdraw from that state, given the fact that they're thinking to pass that restriction law that eventually, at the moment that the heart is going to start beating, they're going to say that abortion cannot be performed. Means that that could have a political impact and an economic impact in the governors that are approving and are pushing these laws. So they might feel the pain.
That's right, they will feel the pain. The reality is that, look, these abortion bans are extreme. Now, at 6 weeks, most people don't even know they're pregnant. That's just 2 weeks after your missed period. So let's be real about what these abortion bans are. They're strictly trying to take away our access to safe and legal abortion in this country. And people are reacting to this. That's why you see celebrities. That's why you're seeing all these companies react and say no. Women are the majority in this country, and women continue to deserve to have access to safe and legal abortion and to decide what is best for themselves and what is best for their own bodies. And so that is extremely important. The majority of Americans support safe and legal abortion, which is why you're seeing companies react this way, because they know the majority of their clients are against this. The majority of the people who bring money into these companies are saying enough is enough. These bans are ridiculous. These bans are not okay, and people will not stand for them.
Do you think that this issue of abortion is going to be part of the argument, the discussion in the political process towards the presidential elections in 17 months?
We've already seen candidates speak out against these abortion bans. Candidates have been saying they want to protect safe and legal abortion. So reality is that we know these abortion bans and these attacks on our reproductive health and rights aren't going away. We know that these extreme politicians are going to continue to push bans and restrictions after restrictions with the attempt to ultimately take away access to safe and legal abortion in this country. So it won't be a surprise that these conversations and these attacks will continue on in the next months. But do know that people are watching, and people are listening, and people are reacting and speaking out against these. The opposition is strong. We're saying enough is enough, and we will continue to fight back this, and that is why candidates are speaking out, because they know that their base and the people of Americans here in the U.S., 73%, the majority, want to protect safe and legal abortion in this country, and it is their responsibility to ensure we